right. Let's talk about Boba Fett, the season finale. What a ride that was. And really, can I just say one thing before we get started? There's this old movie to me, and it's The Legend of the Lone Ranger. And there's this scene, not the one from like a couple years ago, there's this one from the 80s. There's a scene where they're in this like canyon and they're getting bombarded, and this old kind of sheriff goes, "It's not the bullet that gets you, it's the fall." And boy, is that theory tested in this one. Because first off, I mean, and look, we're just going to talk about it. It's like we just watched it and now we're here chatting about it. Literally, I just watched it. But anyways, I mean, we lose the warthogs, the hogs, the pigs, and not the we lose his like first like guards or bodyguards. They fall off a cliff. Well, they get pushed off a cliff. No bullet really gets them, but it does prove the first one of the points, which is it is sometimes the fall that gets you. And where they fell far. I mean, so far you didn't even see him fall all the way. That's how far it is. So that's a one, right? And then you had this one where Fennec came in and saved all like the modded people, which but she comes in and just like snipes everybody and snipes this one guy who's like, what's going on? Like trying to call his buddies back instead of trying to look for the shooter that's clearly destroying his the advantage they once had. He's like, hey, wait a minute, guys. He gets shot, right? And then he falls out the window and lands in buckets of water. And look, those buckets of water did not help at all. I mean, his body like crunched in half and then he fell over. So that one kind of proved like a little. I mean, it's not the. I mean, if it wasn't the bullet, it definitely was the fall on that one. But then the last one that kind of came about was, I mean, and this is where it kind of critiques the bullet because they're using laser beams. So already it's a little shafty where I'm going with this. But there's one part where Boba Fett and Mandalorian are basically going to town in an alley. Like they're being swarmed, and all they got is themselves because everyone else has been bombarded and taken over because their whole plans got ruined. But more on that in a second. And so they're trying to gain a position, and they're just getting shot at from all sides. And finally, it kind of looks like they have an upper hand ish. Then this guy gets up on a roof and like starts and shoots them both in the back. And this is after a few minutes where they've been hit a few times. I mean, thank goodness for their armor, but so they got hit both, and they both had just had it. Because not only did they both turn around and shoot this guy perfectly where he was going to fall, and the fall was going to finish it off, and they could go back to the plethora of people that were right in front of him. Instead, they were like, "Oh no, you know what? This time was the last time," and they just shot this guy like 20 more times as he's falling. They're just like, "Nope, bang, 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 bang." You're like, "All right, like there's more people over." Like, no, this guy, he really is the pinnacle of why I'm so upset. So they just blast his ass like 30 more times. I mean, there's like 20 other people around them, but they're just like, no, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, my goodness, a little overkill there. I get it. Your emotions were high strung at that point. Overall thoughts. I really enjoyed the show. I think they really like brought something together and really showed like the transition for Boba Fett to really abide by like his tribe and understand like at the end what he was fighting for. And when he kind of defeats like Cad Bane at the end, he kind of realizes that transition is complete. Like he defeats like kind of his former mentor and kind of cuts his former ties of being a bounty hunter, and now is fully going to take on this new role of protecting the town and serving the town and being kind of, lord over the town. And I was really interested to see like the closing of everything. I was really expecting like we will see Boba Fett again or something like that, but it kind of ends with all kind of wrapped up in a bow. And which is great, and I'm sure we'll see these characters again and everything like that. But I really thought like the storytelling was really intricate, and I really enjoyed like the whole layout, even with them tying in like the Mandalorian and things like that. I really thought they did like a really good job of kind of bringing in like a really like in depth. I mean, I've watched this thing so many times, and I just keep finding new things and enjoying it even more and more. Favorite moments. My goodness. I mean, that gladiator Wookiee just kills me every time. I mean, he's just like, no matter what happens to him, that guy will just. He kind of reminds me of like King Shark from Suicide Squad. Is like, no matter how much you beat this guy up, like, he will not go. And he is just defiant to the end, just throwing people across the room and using those like electric fists to just beat the out of everybody. Um, we also had a giant like monster versus robot fight that took like for it was just all over the place. I was so interested in seeing Boba Fett riding the Rancor and just going to town on these robots. I mean, and these robots were some tough SOBs. I mean, they would not let up no matter how hard you hit them. Also, though, I think we all need to start building our structures out of these like but these buildings, like these buildings can take the most aggressive beatings I have ever seen. Like nothing could stop these robots except for this one sand wall that protected all of them for way so long. I mean, and I'm okay with it. But I mean, that wall, I mean, you could just put some plaster on it and that wall would be good as new tomorrow. I mean, the structure of that wall did not lose its integrity at all. And it was getting shot at from a giant robot amongst a bunch of other people with guns. I mean, you're just like, how much can this wall take? Clearly, it could go all day long. And then you just throw some sand on there, and tomorrow you're good to go. You shoot it again. I was shocked. And but back to the Rancor and the monster. I mean, the Rancor just was the Rancor and the monster. The Rancor fighting the robots because this guy just like was pounding him in the ground, backhanding him across the wall, ripping limbs off, just tearing him into pieces. I mean, this Rancor wound up being like the savior they needed, and also going into like being the Godzilla of Tatooine and just start destroying everything. I mean, it's a real. I mean, everything was so like, all right, we're gonna. Oh no, this is now a problem. Oh no, we're fixing it. Oh no, now it's a problem. And you couldn't. It was so much fun of a ride to go on, and there's so many other like good moments, especially with Fennec at the end, like wiping out the competition completely and almost giving everybody like their just desserts. Almost like the mayor kind of gets hanged, the Pike Syndicates get stabbed in the back, kind of like he stabbed everybody in the back. Like everything, like she really went to town on those people. Um, really just really fun moments like to watch, and I was really like overall just really curious to see what happens next or how these characters gets used in the future. But I mean, even Cad Bane, and we'll talk about him too, because what an awesome character. I mean, it was so cool. I know for like Star Wars fandom, for him to like actually like appear in the actual like Star Wars movie TV universe instead of just like the animation, which Cad Bane like made an appearance as has been shown like throughout the Clone Wars. Pretty sure I got that right. And so now like him being pulled out over here, and they did awesome with his character, right? And so now, like him being pulled out over here, and they did awesome with his character. I mean, his look was super cool. His character was super in depth, and he really posed as like a interesting character to Boba Fett because clearly, I mean, not only are they bounty hunters, so they have some sort of relationship, but it also kind of seems like they're also like Cad Bane mentored him in some way, and they have a kind of a more closer like relationship or bond or something like that than just like, oh, you're a fellow bounty hunter and who's like beating Boba Fett out on a few jobs. I mean, that's how good this Cad Bane guy is. Not only is he like a really awesome like bounty hunter and he knows like that game really well, he also I think understands like people and interactions really well, and he has a keen insight into how to utilize emotions and things like that. And it's because he has like this balancing act. Like even with the people he's working for, he's kind of like he tests them and goes, they're like, how much do I have to put through? Because I wanted to win and I want this to kind of work, but we're going way too far. They blew up my favorite bar, and now I didn't agree to all this. And Cad Bane like kind of says like a really like interesting line. He's like, well, this is gonna go as far as your stomachs can bear. Like what we're doing, like what we're trying to accomplish is ugly business. Like this isn't like he understands like the nature of his business, which is also really fascinating. Um, Too, because not only does he like want like is he a great bounty hunter, but he understands like the nature of the environment in which he's in, and why he like points this out, because he's like, look, we can take this as far as we're willing to take it to succeed, but that's only going to be as far as you guys are going to be able to handle it. And so these certain like tactics that we're using, they're going to get us to win, but how much can you take? So it was really interesting, that facet, because he also plays it the total opposite against Boba Fett, because he takes all the information and things like that and he utilizes it against his opponent to kind of enrage or ramp up their emotions to cloud their judgment, right? And it's almost in Boba Fett's like it's almost in Boba Fett's benefit that now he's created kind of a tribe and a people who are willing to kind of protect him and stand up, to him, and not just kind of abide by his rules. Because Fennec kind of goes, hey, look, man, like you don't want to, you're not ready to fight this guy. Yeah, you might be able to take him, blah blah, but he's baiting you right now. So if you take the bait, like we don't know what else he has up his sleeve. And because Fennec is kind of, has a level head. He's not riled up by anything that's really happened, and is able to kind of clearly see like, even though you might think you can take him and everything's good and we've got Mandalorian and I'm here, we don't know what Cad Bane's planning, and he's come to us. So clearly he's holding the cards right now. So let's wait and utilize for the proper moment to attack, which I thought was super interesting. Um, and something I kind of like fixated on as well, because, you know, throughout all their planning, it all kind of goes sideways, but they don't, especially Fennec and Boba Fett, and like the reason why they're so good, right, is because their skill in not allowing their emotions to cloud too much of what's going on. Like they made the best made plan that they can make, and yeah, they told when it fell apart, both of them looked at him was like, this is the right call, like because the whole town turns on everybody, and you're like, and you go, well, that was kind of obvious, right? Because they're all looking out for themselves. And Mando and Boba are like, yep. And you're at one point, you're kind of thinking like, wait, if you saw this, why didn't you prepare more? Well, there wasn't anything else to prepare. They made the best made plans, and now that those plans have fallen through, they now have to just stay calm and keep moving forward towards their goal. And their goal is defending the town and defeating the Pikes. And so, and then they have this like fantastic moment where, they do a little ruse with. I really enjoyed the Major Domo, the little like major's like executive assistant or whatever. He comes in and he's like, oh, my dear's like, apologies, but I studied in Coruscant. Not that that makes me better or anything. I think I could go out there and talk these guys out of it. We could boogie out with a little groveling. All right, we might have to pay a fee, but it's all right. It'll be all right. And Boba goes, yeah, all right, that's fine. And you're like, wait a minute, you're that's not gonna happen. And of course, like he walks out there with a bunch of false like bravado, right? Because he has a bunch of false bravado until it's tested. Like he's like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. Gun points at him. Oh well, actually, I'll tell you anything you want to know. So he walks out there with this note, thinking, oh, I've got it all made. I'm gonna get saved. I'm gonna save everybody, and we're not gonna fight. And I'm not gonna get the finger across the throat move. And he walks out there and he starts reading the note, and he like doesn't want to finish because he goes, oh, okay, it was, we're not surrendering. I'm the I'm the guinea pig. I'm the hey, look over here. Why Boba Fett and Mando swarm in from above with jetpacks and just start blowing everything up. And luckily, the tails, gets out of there. That's what we're gonna call him from now on. Other ideas I want to talk about: Grogu. I can't believe he made the choice to go back with the Mandalorian. I mean, I was completely on board with like Luke being honest and his, saying like you do have this choice. But it's interesting to see Grogu making the choice that best suits him over what might best suit everybody else. So often we're in these positions where we've got to make these choices and everybody wants us to go over here. It's not a bad choice. There's nothing wrong with this choice, but this other choice, this other path that we might want to follow, is the one that might be harder to choose because no one's really rooting for that one except for you, right? And it's sometimes hard to go against what everybody else is saying and really choose the path that you want. And we see Grogu doing that, and you're like, wait a minute, really? He's not persuade like even though Luke wasn't trying to persuade him or anything, he wasn't persuaded by how much good he could do or the potentiality of like what that training could do for the universe or whatever. He was solely going based off of like what where he might be needed most and the path that he wants to go down. And that's a really tough like decision like to make and stick to. And the fact that we see that he's doing that and he's chosen like the Mandalorian armor and things like that is really interesting. I'm really curious to see like kind of where they take that. And I was just really interested by the decision making process of that choice and kind of how I saw it laid out.